thank you all for coming out here today. Toronto Urban Book Expo. It's a fantastic event to see a lot of lovely authors from our community. Fiction, non-fiction. I think biographers out there. Other people promoting cultural artifacts and products. It's a beautiful thing, right? So thank you all for coming out. So my name is Dalton Higgins, and I'm a locally based author. I was born in Toronto. Parents came here from Jamaica in the late 60s. And I've written 6 books to date. And my most recent title is called Rap and Roll. Okay, that's what it looks like there. Okay, Rap and Roll. All right. And I'll give you a 1-minute sort of walk through some of my other titles. I wrote one book that's a bestseller. It's called Hip Hop World. And what the book aimed to do was sort of take you on a walk, across different continents to try and understand rap music and hip hop culture, why it is as popular as it is around the world, okay? Including the West, including North America, okay? So whether you love hip hop or loathe hip hop, right? You think it's noise, it is the voice of today's youth, period, point blank, okay? That's not my opinion. And that's not really open to debate. There's a bunch of research and studies. Academics are now digging in and saying, okay, if we look at different music genres, rock and roll, punk rock, jazz, blues, classical, so-called world music, young people tend to be gravitating towards rap music and the broader hip-hop culture way more so than those other music forms, okay? Than punk or jazz or classical, opera, blues, whatever music genre you listen to, okay? Those are the facts. Now, the title of the book is Rap and Roll, okay? And so you'll notice it's a combination of, rap meets rock and roll. Rap and roll, get it? All right, rap and roll. And I'm going to read you a quote. There's a rapper that you probably all heard about him. His name is Kanye West. Okay, right? Kanye West. He's a hugely popular rapper originally from Chicago. And this is what he said about rap music and his role in rap music. He said that rap is the new rock and roll. He said, "We are the new rock stars, and I'm the biggest of all of them." He said that. I think this is typical classic Kanye. There's no humility there. Okay. He said that I'm the #1 rock star on the planet. Caucasian kids, white kids, Asian kids from Korea, Japan, China, kids from South Asia, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Wherever you go around the world now, this black noise is now the main noise. This is like the main. This forms like the soundtrack to their own households, despite at one time or another being considered black noise. It's not real music. Now it is considered a legitimate, genuine, validated music. Okay? Now, when I talk about how hip-hop has been dominant over the last 40 years plus, what's happening is, anybody here grow up listening to like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles by a show of hands? Rolling Stones, Beatles? Okay, you remember the Beatles, right? Exactly, right? And our memories of when we think about the Beatles or the Rolling Stones is, they dominated the Billboard Top 100 charts. Okay, so when you look at a lot of records of, like record-breaking albums, they'll say, okay, who sold the most #1 singles, right? Who sold the most albums? It's going to go back to bands like that. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, they set a ton of records, right? Elvis Presley even, okay, right? Now what's happening, fast forward to today, over the past half century, they say that a lot of those records are being broken by rappers, okay, right? So you have a case, for example, let's look at somebody like Drake, okay? We all know Drake. Some of us love him, others despise him. He's a polarizing figure, I would say. I actually wrote a book about an unauthorized biography about Drake, and that's what I found. Either you love him or you can't stand the guy, like that's what it is, the city is sort of split down the middle. And so his last mixtape, it's called, if you're reading this, it's too late. It actually broke a record from the Beatles that's been sitting around since 1964, okay? So 20-year-old rapper from Toronto who's biracial. His father is black from the American South, and his mother is Caucasian and Jewish, right? Lives in Toronto still. He's breaking records that the Beatles had since 1964, okay? Just some rap kid from Toronto in his 20s, okay? So this is what's happening when we actually look at the hard facts as to how rap has is removing, it's annihilating, obliterating some of these other genres that dominated the charts. Okay? And there's actually, when we talk this is an interesting thing. I've been studying and documenting hip-hop for a very long time, and because it's always been considered not a legitimate music form, when you wanted to talk about it in school, in high school, middle school, the academy, college, university, it was not taken seriously. Today, it's taken very seriously. So you have, in the United States, you have over 300 plus, hip-hop programs of study. So you're going to have kids now that say, hey, I graduated from high school, I want to study hip-hop. I want to study hip-hop in university or college. And there are a bunch of programs that can accommodate those needs and interests. All right? So any of you in here who have children or grandchildren and say, hey, I want to study hip-hop, I want to become a hip-hop professor, a hip-hop lecturer, you can actually do that now, today, right? You look at, you have schools called Ivy League institutions in the United States, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, right? These are some of the elite universities in the United States. What you have happening there is they have whole hip-hop departments now, okay? So Harvard University, which is considered, arguably, one of the finest universities in the world, never mind North America, they have a whole, something called a hip-hop archive, okay, where they have just dozens upon dozens of literature and artifacts in their archives that document rap music, hip-hop culture from the 70s to today, all right? So you can literally go to Harvard, go to Yale, Stanford, Cornell, and they have hip-hop departments there, where you can study hip-hop, right? And get an undergraduate degree, that type of thing, okay? So it's definitely, I like to say that hip-hop has grown up and left the hood. Now I have a question for you. A lot of people tend to look at hip-hop still as this music form that is singularly enjoyed and participated in by black communities, okay? So when I say hip-hop, some people think, okay, it's black culture or it's Latin American culture, okay? Based on its roots, based on its history, where it's coming from. Coming from the South Bronx, or Jamaica, I'll take it further back. The guy who really is the real inventor, his name is Kool Herc, and he migrated to the South Bronx in the late 60s, and he brought with him a lot of the Jamaican sound system traditions. Of toasting, in Jamaica you have the same toasting. That's my background, where you're basically walking back and forth, or you're basically in a mic and you're telling stories, storytelling. And you're talking about current affairs, you're talking about things happening in and around your community, right? So let's say we're here today at the library, right? Somebody could make up a rhyme and just talk about it and say, hey, we're at the library, and it seems kind of, they just make it up and it just rhymes, okay? So that's been happening in Jamaica and predates rap music and hip-hop culture by a good 8 to 10 years, okay? So originally, its roots really come from Jamaica, Kool Herc, okay? Kingston, Jamaica, and moved to the South Bronx, late 60s into the early 70s. Now kids are having parties, mimicking those Jamaican sound system, stylings, right? Of talking to the microphone, talking about current affairs, talking about issues that impact your community. That's happening in New York, and then there's a sort of birth of what we now know as a hip-hop culture, rap music, all right? Before something is called rap music, as we understand it to be rap music, you have griot, right? Griot, right? West African tradition. This is an example, G-R-I-O-T. And a griot, which goes back centuries, it's a traditional, it's like a traveling bardsman, and they're just basically traveling and telling stories, storytelling, essentially, right? Storytelling with a musical accompaniment, which could be a djembe drum, it could be anything, right? Djembe drum, mouth music. So if we want to go right back, and I make that argument in one of my books, in Hip Hop World, if we want to take it way back, Africa is absolutely, you're going to see this phenomenon, before it's called rap music, before it hits the West, before it hits Kingston, Jamaica, transatlantic slave trade, Middle Passage. Africa, there's a lot of forms and traditions, storytelling forms that mimic and mirror and come before something called rap, okay? And I talked about the griot tradition. When you have a wedding ceremony, West Africa, right? Death, pass into the afterlife, there's always a griot present. Right? G-R-I-O-T, griot. The griot is just storytelling like a rapper would in 2016. Okay, so griot. Now, as far as socioeconomics, I second that notion. Ditto. Is white kids, in all of the studies that we've accumulated, people that study the culture, they have said that it is white kids that are the largest consumers, of rap music as part of the broader hip-hop culture. It's white youth. They say it's also mostly male, right? White males that are obsessed and fixated with rap music and hip-hop culture. And one of the theories, you both touched on it, one of the theories is economics, right? So when we talk about the socioeconomic positioning of certain communities over others, what you'll find in North America, sadly and unfortunately, is a too large segment of the black community we're not faring as well as we need to be, okay? from a socioeconomic position. All right, we're not faring. When we talk about wealth, we talk about economics. All right, we talk about economic empowerment. Okay, in the West. All right. So what that means is if there's this influx of new, iTunes, now, people that used to buy CDs. I was going to say CDs, but people don't buy CDs. That's old school. People now, that's what it is. People are downloading music. So when new music comes out on, you can download on iTunes or still buy CDs for those that do. Some people still buy vinyl. They say that the Caucasian community, the dominant culture, the white community, they're going to have the economic needs. They can just go buy everything. Whereas me as a black person, or if I'm from another culture, indigenous, other communities that aren't faring as well, I can't just go spend. I don't have $200 to just go blow on music like that. Okay? I don't have, the argument is that we don't have as much disposable income. And where we choose to put our disposable income, it's maybe not there. Okay? So this is how this theory comes about. Because whenever we talk about, is it black kids, when they say hip-hop, oh, it's a bunch of black kids, pants hanging down. It's like, no. The largest consumers of rap are white kids, actually. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you some charts. Deborah Harry, Rapture, Blondie, okay? She's a white woman from New York, yes?
Was it because they're more recognized? Why they rise to the top so fast?
Right.
Being someone of color,
Right.
non-black.
Yes, okay, good, yeah. I'm gonna give you some stuff there because we don't have much time. This is what they say. This is one of the theories when we talk about, I'll leave you with this, when they talk about how artists that aren't black or of color, they tend to get prematurely elevated to the #1 position. And they say there's a definite racial component to that as far as we talk about race, how race is treated in, certainly in North America and the West. So what ends up happening is, forget rap music for a second. Let's go to rock and roll. All right, let's talk a little about rock and roll and its roots and its history. Who is the king of rock and roll? Who's considered the king of rock and roll? Elvis Presley. Okay? They say, exactly, right? Now, if you dig a little deeper, do a bit of research, hang out in the library collection, they have a great one here, because this is all documented. I'm not making any of this up.
Yes.
Elvis Presley is not really the king of rock and roll.
Yes.
What he did is, a lot of his, his song structure, songwriting, the way he moved, you'll recall he used to, do his waist and all this, he ain't nothing but a hound dog, do all this kind of stuff. A lot of that was stuff that was happening in the African American community in the American South that predates him by 10 to 15 years. So what happens is you have all of this, we call it erasure. You have a musician called Bo Diddley. Okay, Bo Diddley. You have other musicians like Chuck Berry. Okay, Chuck Berry, you remember Chuck Berry, he'd be jumping around doing all this stuff, okay? So you had a lot of musicians that predate, that come before Elvis Presley, that were, when we talk about the practice of music, as far as live performance and, again, songwriting and structures, harmonies, the popular theory is that he borrowed elements, from the African American entertainers and communities. And then this is how, a big part of how Elvis was born, okay? And this is all historical fact. So you have quotes of him saying, yeah, I really love Bo Diddley, I like the way he does this. I really like this musician, right? You have even, and it's gone so bad, so when we talk about the history of rock and roll and erasure, I'm presenting to you these facts. Eminem is the biggest selling rapper of all time. He's, it's a white kid from Detroit, white guy from Detroit. Despite the fact that we know that rap music it's a historically black music, it's a black invention, right? It's black people that invented it, originated it, right? And founded it, but it's some of the biggest chart toppers historical are white, okay? So with rock and roll, it's much the same. It's the same trajectory, right? As you have, before the music was even called rock and roll, you had something called race music, okay? So the idea of shaking your hips and playing guitars and having parties and how we call it booze cans, drinking alcohol and partying and talking, sexually suggestive lyrics, that's something that was happening in the African American community, something called race music. So there was a time when rock and roll was only singularly listened to by black people, right? People playing guitars and partying and talking, sexually suggestive lyrics. It was only black people doing it in the American South, okay? And then now when we think rock and roll in the popular culture, the king of rock and roll, we think Elvis Presley, okay? So just to answer your question about erasure, again, if you dig a little bit, there's even a musician, Little Richard. Y'all know Little Richard, right?
Yeah.
And he always, he's African American, and he'll always be like, he says, I'm the real king of rock and roll, right? You ever hear when he says that? He says that, that's not the king, I'm the real king. And people ridicule him, right? It's treated as a joke, like this guy's like, who is this guy claiming, rock and roll king stature? But he is one of the kings of rock and roll, if you dig a little deeper. But there's this kind of erasure that happens when it comes to, black inventions, historically black musics like rap music and rock and roll, okay? when we talk about even, when I ask, as far as just to get some gender balance, it's not just a singularly male-dominated form. Does anybody in here ever heard of a woman named Sister Rosetta Tharpe? Okay, Sister Rosetta. So, okay, not a lot. By show of hands, anybody ever heard that name, Sister Rosetta Tharpe? Okay, right? Now, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, when we talk about the history of rock music and rock and roll, she is like the mother, the godmother, the grandmother of rock and roll, right? You can't look at modern day rock and pop musicians without pointing back to Sister Rosetta Tharpe, okay? And you can look her up. Her name is Rosetta Tharpe, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She was called Sister because she comes out of the black church tradition. Okay, so she was a gospel singer. We call the godmother, grandmother, mother of rock and roll. It's a black woman from the American South that had been recording music with guitars, protest music with guitars 10 years before there was such a thing called Elvis Presley. It's a black woman, okay, right? Mother of rock and roll. How come only 3 hands went up here when I said, you ever heard of Sister Rosetta Tharpe? Okay, I think 3 hands, 3 out of the 20 some odd of you all, right? Yeah, and this is like the inventor of, as a female, playing 10 years before Elvis, okay? So I have to wrap up. When I talk about, does anybody here know Tupac Shakur? We've ever heard of Tupac Shakur, okay, right? The notorious B.I.G., okay? Biggie Smalls, okay, we know these musicians. Now the thing is, even my 9-year-old son knows who they are, exactly. While snacking on popcorn, So why this is significant is we have to be, just some final thoughts is, when it comes to things like, Oscar So White, right? We heard the controversy, there's the Academy Awards, no black nominees, no racialized community members as nominees of the 20, primary nominee categories. We have to be very aware of the erasure of how we get erased from things. We invent things, we create things, we innovate things, we originate things, and then you become yesterday's news. Okay? Because this is some of that is happening with rap music and hip hop culture now. It happened if you go to a blues concert now, you go to a jazz concert, all right? The audience is there. I'm a music programmer as well. I produce concerts and festivals, and holy cow, there's no black, I don't know why. I don't know why that is, right? Jazz music, it's a black music invention. The blues, this comes from the gutter music from the South, Go to a blues concert in Toronto. Go to a blues concert in New York. Go to a blues concert in Chicago. Right? It's going to be white, Caucasian, largely Caucasian.
Why is this?
Exactly.
Why is this?
Why is this exactly?
Question.
That's right. It's a serious question, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about because we were talking when you came in a little later about this, who's consuming the music, who's buying tickets, and then who's now claiming the music, right? This is what's happening, right? So if I throw a jazz concert, a lot of black folk, they're going to leave the room. They're going to be like, this ain't, I'm out of here. I don't even want to, and it's a rich, historical black music, right? So the reason I mentioned Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G. is you have people like Macklemore winning Grammy Awards. He's a rapper. He was in a category in 2014 up against Kanye West and Drake and Jay-Z and Kendrick Lamar, a white rapper from Seattle, and he won the award for Best Rap Album. Okay, this white rapper from Seattle. Okay, he won a Grammy Award. Yet Tupac Shakur, he's never won a Grammy Award, right? Notorious B.I.G., he's never won a Grammy Award, right? So all of the rappers that we largely consider to be the greatest rappers of all time, Nas, right, Tupac, they've never won Grammy Awards, okay? But Macklemore won a Grammy Award, okay? So when we look at the broader culture, how do you measure success? How do you measure success and equality in this culture? Sometimes it's accolades, it's awards. Who won the most Grammy Awards? Who won the most American Music Awards? Right? That's how you measure who's doing well in these societies, right? Macklemore's won a Grammy Award. None of these other iconoclasts have won Grammy Awards, okay? So it's just something to think about. I'm going to wrap up. Something to think about as creators. As we create, there are some writers here that write urban fiction, street fiction, fiction in general. Always be aware, right? Keep that third eye open, that sixth sense, When we create things, we have to really just hold on to it, and celebrate it, honor it, commemorate it, right? Attend events. This is a Toronto Urban Book Expo. There are a lot of black authors here. We have to support our own initiatives. I don't want to see 10, 20 years from now there's a Toronto Urban Book Expo and it's largely Caucasian males selling books when we know that urban is a euphemism for black. Okay, right? Okay, so those are my final thoughts. Does anybody have any questions? The book is called Rap and Roll, okay, and we're selling it here $16. And some of what I touched on here around appropriation, meaning non-black communities essentially swooping in and almost reclaiming a culture that we created, and it's all documented, it's facts. Like what I'm presenting to you, these are historical facts. It's not my opinion, right? So these things aren't arguable or open to debate. These are facts, yes.
What does the black community have to do, in your opinion, to control their narrative?
Control their narrative, right. I would say, for one, I think because, when you come from a community of innovators, I think we sometimes grow tired real quickly. Like, we just invent brilliant, forward-thinking, progressive things. And there's something about us, I don't know if it's in our psyche, dating back to, the continent, to the Caribbean, Latin America, and it seems we grow tired of it quickly, and then we go on to create something new, right? So we are the prime creators, innovators. When you talk about something like rock and roll, right? A lot of people, you say, who's king of rock and roll? Elvis Presley. If you go to a rock and roll show in Toronto, it's going to be mostly, non-black kids, obviously. But we created it. I don't know if it's something about us, just we're in this cycle of just innovating, genius, savant-like, we're just creating new things at the speed of light, where we just, lose interest and move on to the next thing, right? That's one of the theories, is we're so busy creating, we're so busy innovating that we just kind of go, on to the next, right? It's one of the theories. Right. Yeah. Any other questions about black music, just in general, or rap music in particular?
Represents what Canada's authors are to the rest of the world, because this is tied to, is it 8 other festivals around the world? And what they're showing them is we're not really diverse, at least not literary. So being at an event like this, it means a lot to me. Yes, most of us are self-published. I've self-published stuff as well. But if we're not the ones putting out our voice, we have to ask ourselves who is going to. And we also have to ask, okay, how are we going to break into things like literary awards, which is one of the reasons why with Guernica, how are we as people of color going to break into the literary awards side? Because right now what's going on is you have a handful of old white, mainly gentlemen, giving awards to their friends and their friends' children. There's a person who won the Governor General's Award for Poetry, who won the award because 2 people on the board babysat him as a child. That's a fact. So how do we break that? First, we have to at least try to get at least one book with a publisher. And next is I haven't gotten to the stage where I'm trying to get on these boards, but that's the goal. And right now, I'm a former slam poet, and I'm collaborating with performance artists, and sadly it's mainly hanging out with little white girls. And I would like to have a more diverse collaborative team. There's no money in it yet, but it's basically poetry with performance art, doing weird stuff so that we can get poetry into different spaces than just libraries. We're performing in bars. We want to go to black box theater spaces, and talking about doing stuff outdoors like guerrilla sort of poetry performance stuff. So, I'm going to read, I'm just going to do stuff, and then if you guys have questions and I have time, I'll answer. And if you want me to sign anything, like if you buy my book, if you want me to sign it, I'll gladly sign it. Or just ask me questions, because I love the question and answer thing, even if it's outside or downstairs or something like that. So this piece, it's slightly different than the version of the poem in my book, but the version of my book's pretty cool too. This is called Dark Black Lines. These are not age lines. They're more like grooves of vine, where dust makes music skippable. Like marionettes with running string, our movements are erratic in the lucky days where nothing breaks. But something is always in disrepair. In our minds, this is the aftermath of nuclear apocalypse, but in makeshift villages beneath the dilapidated iron frames of towers that once broke the belly of God. I guess she got angry, leaving us with these hard black that have me searching for a direct drive turn. When in love, the first thing the musician explains to the lover is rhythm. The song is a line. The beat represents the pulse of this creature. She's a jealous beast. She reflects the soul of her parents. She does not lie. Honesty is a weapon used to manipulate. Don't look directly in our eyes or you shall become a slave to our whims and follies just like the rest of us. These dark black lines, punchlines to jokes at our expense, the angst of emo without all that emotion, like cutters or last screws are often silent. These dark black lines, more like black eyes than black skies. These are not the carriers of water to wash it all away. More like the remnants of abuse, leaving a permanent memory. These dark black lines, if you kiss them, you will hear the siren's melody. Be caught too deep. Searching the shoreline for your ship of repatriation, but your black star liner is leagues beneath the sea. These dark black lines are not the result of closed bedroom doors. They swing like ropes on trees, praying to gods like the ones of us left behind, as bedsheets flutter in the summer breeze. These dark black lines are like a tattoo. To some, they mark our savagery, but to others, they are beauty, telling a story like, I got this one when the person I love threw me away, it marks my freedom. These dark black lines are a call for home, imprinted in Braille 1,000 times. Some may call them cliche, or the mark of a martyr who never planned to die. Sometimes the songs write themselves. You get caught in the dark black line and can't pick up the needle. The days keep repeating themselves, and you can't pick up the needle. Look at yourself in the mirror and wonder if anyone will ever love someone with so many dark black lines etched into the skin, as if love resolves problems. It doesn't. Love gives comfort when surrounded by turmoil, peace to sleepless nights. But if it disappears, another dark black line shall return like the voodoo curse that follows my existence. These dark black lines are more than a metaphor. They're the sonic reverberation of a 1,000-year-old tree. They echo life into existence. They are a call for freedom.
All about balance. The book is about not just a book, because I don't know how many people who's actually authors position themselves to write a book. How many people just got up one morning and said, I'm going to write a book? You know, or did something attract you to make you want to write a book? That's normally what happened to authors. I know that's what happened to me. I never attended to write a book. You know, my thing was always radio station, owning a radio station, turning that AM station into an FM station, then turning radio into TV, and doing all this so we tell our own story. That was my goal. But the Lord took it and put another twist to it, you know, so we never know how he's going to lead us and what he's going to do, right? But I know he didn't deposit talents inside of each and every one of us. And I think that everyone should write a book because it leave a legacy for your children, for your families, for them to see, you know. That's why on the back of all my books, I have journals. These are all my journals. From when I first started at the radio station, I always journal. Like when I would go see a client, whatever I was doing, I would always journal, right? So I took all my journals to write my book because it's like living my life over again, right? But in between journaling, I have lines in there where people can write their own journals. So when you're reading it, you're going to get inspired. Something's going to attract you to say, oh, that's good. And I'm looking for people to do more epic dreams, buying your own radio station. It's attainable. With God, all things is possible. Right. So at the end of my book, I have a love letter to all women and men. After you cut your ribbon on your epic dream, I want to come and help you cut your ribbon after you read the book because it's going to inspire you to do some amazing things in life, you know. So with it, you just can't write a book. You got to write a book. You got to know how you're going to market the book, what you're going to do with the book, right? A lot of people write books and it just sits on the shelf. You know, not only doing events like this Expo and stuff, you got to market. With my book, I have my own personal journals. I came up with my own logo, 29 years of preparation, write down your epic dream and watch God move, SLB, Sheila Lynn Brown. So I have people where they can not only buy my book, they can buy journals to write their own epic dream. Sticky notes. Sticky notes is what I had in my room for like 14 years. I would write FCC. I got to call FCC, how to move a tower, how to get a tower, how to get a station. When you get to the FCC, how to obtain someone else's, because get it, I worked at this station for 14 years, so now I'm gonna pique their interest on buying a business. Unheard of, right? So this is how God moves. So not only the buying journal, I have the stone journal, with is wonderful stone paper with a pen, and then I have the e-card. So not only, so many people now is into download. They have nooks, they have electronics. So now I have an e-card where you can download and download it right into your own nook, right? So then you gotta walk away with your own little bag, you know? So when they buy my products, you know, they got their own bag. But this is all about marketing. Because now when they take that book out, then when they go shopping something, they're gonna be walking around with this bag. So people are wondering, what's SLB? What's 29 years of preparation? Someone's gonna Google it and see what it is. You know, so it's more to it than just writing a book. I'm writing a book to change the lifestyle of my family. You know, I'm writing this book to be a self-made millionaire. You know, because if others can do it, we can too. So when I say I mean all of us. You know, because all of us pretty much in here have written books. We're our own entrepreneur as far as it comes to the books. But now the second step has to be, where do you want to go from here? Where do you want to take your book from here? So with the radio station, on Saturdays, we do something where we have authors. Authors call in, authors come in. We do author alleys at the radio station because the Lord didn't allow me to have the microphone. So I got to share it, right? So now, of a woman of color, I'm bringing in other people. Look, you got a book, you got an entrepreneur, you got a store. Come tell your story on the radio station. So the mass can hear it. You can download our app anywhere in the country and hear WUFO radio. You know, you could be in Jamaica, Toronto, it doesn't matter. You download our app, you go on our website, WUFOAM.com, click on the red button, listen live, you hear us anywhere in the country. Your smartphone, your smart TVs, you pull down the free app and stroll over to gospel, because our base is gospel music, talk, oldies, blues, and sports. That's our format. And free app. So anywhere, like right now, while I've been here at the library, I've been listening to the radio station while I'm here to make sure everything is on task of where it needs to be at. You know, I'm gonna leave a little bit of time because I know everybody wants to get to their booths, and she's kind of dotting her head like someone else needs to come up. But I want to leave room. I'll answer 3 quick questions if anyone has any questions.
Basically, as Sheila was saying, in terms of marketing and things of that nature, I consider myself to be a rich chick. Rich not in the sense of monetary or material acquisition of wealth, but in terms of mind, body, and soul. And because of the fact that, you know, given these particular sites or these particular steps, I've traveled many journeys. Some that I welcomed and others that I did not. And on those journeys, I had a new fresh pair of eyes, so to speak, a new side of insight. So I know that Stacey's not physically in this room, but I thank her a lot for having this Toronto Book Expo. It's most needed and most appreciated, and also being amongst other people and learning and about other authors and meeting other people. My name is Nikki Vernon Johnson, but Andree and Nicole. Andrea is really my middle name, right? And Andrea means strength, and Nicole means victory of the people. So that's why I felt that it should be fitting to use it not only as my pen name, but I also incorporated it as my business, which is an empowerment practice that focuses on workshops and motivational speaking. I'm also a certified life coach, a teacher by profession, 16, 17 years. But April 15, 2010, all of that basically changed. So that's where this journey, where my single steps were of fear, and they were replaced with faith, belief, and the will to persevere. So prior to that, I had like this eerie kind of feeling that something was going to happen in a car. Being a grade 8 teacher at that particular time, I was involved with an ABLE technology program which transitioned grade 8s into high school. And we had to go to Sudbury, and that's my husband, Wayne, right there. And I was telling him that I just didn't feel good. So the day of actually the accident, I went downstairs to speak to my friend who's a librarian and said I don't feel good. And I took a different route because I wanted to get something for my mom. And on that, I have shivers right now, on that way home, that's when the head-on collision, I had a car accident. My car was totaled. The second impact was into the traffic light, and it was in a neighborhood, and they basically heard it, the power went out, and the people came. What I found very interesting, because I know he has a plan, so I was in a lot of agreements when Sheila was talking, is that my mother-in-law was praying for protection for me that morning, but didn't know I would have succumbed to that accident. My father saw the ambulance, but didn't know it was for me. Family friends that were not too far from there were speaking of me for at least 15 minutes. In any event, the paramedics came and asked me if I was pregnant. I said no, but I ended up that I was pregnant and I lost the baby. In 2012, I was pregnant again and ended up losing it again. And so the way that these two books came about is that I would just write. And I'm going to make reference to Sheila a lot because there's a lot of similarities. If you speak to my parents, if you speak to Dane, he will tell you every single night he has to clear the bed off with writing tools or whatever it may be. So I think at the tender age of 5, I was told I was writing. But for me, because of the fact that it was embraced and endorsed with love by family members, it was just easier for me to do so because whenever I was hurting, they were hurting as well too. So I would write. And the title, My Eyes Can See. Every time I would open the Bible, I would see My Eyes Can See. So that's the whole thing behind that. And if you look carefully, there is a woman with an eye. And everything is very symbolic in terms of the flowers or things of that nature and whatnot. And so both of the books take on quotes. They start off with quotes. They start off with short stories that are in relation to the quotes. And it also allows the readers to write in the books and, reflective practices, so to speak. It speaks about, the time, the very first chapter was really a monologue, and that was fresh out of the accident where I had a fear, severe anxieties in terms of being any kind of operated vehicle. Like, I have weight on me now, but at that time I was like 90 odd pounds. And so I would walk, and my brother would joke and say, oh, I'm traveling with the commoners now in the transit. But just once I would get in there, I would feel like I wanted to vomit, headaches, I just wanted to get out, so I avoided it or just walked. And that's where the fear, those steps of fear that I was talking to you about. But although I was going through that, it's like nobody can see, so I know that that's the grace of God. It talks about his hands when I lost the baby. So his hands, meaning when it was very difficult to speak in terms of communication, he would outstretch his hands. So we all know about the art of touch and how it brings back life, even in terms of when you think about twins and the NIC in the incubator and things of that nature, just the touch, just the voice. So it speaks about that. It speaks about post-traumatic stress. It speaks about depression. It speaks about anxiety. It speaks about different journeys. There's things where I love nature, and one in particular, outside of our place where we used to live, there was a tree. So when we think of seasons, there are 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall. So those seasons were related to me. So winter time, there were certain things that were stagnant, that things that were going on. In the summertime, in springtime, fall time, it speaks to that as seasons of faith, perfection. Different times when I'm talking about this, the love of my son, we're blessed to have a 15-year-old, returned 15 December 1st. Different things of that nature. It is all of me in there. And so when I say that at first, I didn't intend for this to be published. I feel like I'm mirroring the former author here. I didn't. Because I was putting myself on blast and my personal information out there, things that happened to me. I have 3 angel babies and I'll forever acknowledge them. Sometimes it's harder than others. I would say that this journey, I've gained a lot of strength. Hence the reason as to Andree, Nicole, right? There's a story in your name in itself. The reason as to why I chose this title, 101 Inspirational Quotes for Rich Chicks, is because I love writing quotes. I love everything about it. And a girlfriend of mine had said, okay, well, when you deliver your workshops, what are you going to give your rich chicks? So I took all my quotes off of social media or whatever, and I started to write. So there's stories in here, again, me talking to my son about failure, success turned inside out. But really, the message was for myself. Or sometimes it's messages from my dad, or my mom, or me speaking to my grandmother who had passed, right? Other times it's just talking, making reference into God and all the different things in terms of the significance of rain and the symbolism behind that, how after after the storm, like there is a calming. Rain is seen as blessings, and everybody freaks out in terms of saying that, oh my gosh, it's raining, but without rain, where would we be, really? The crops wouldn't grow, right? A lot of things wouldn't be in existence. So anytime it rains, it gives me joy.
Surely they could have found somewhere in the west of Trinidad to host it. Most of the attendees will be staying in the west anyway. we always assume the West is the best. So that's what we used to say when I was growing up in Trinidad, because I was from the West. You'd say the West is the best, the South you live out, and the East have beast. Which was a stupid thing at the time, but that's what we thought when we were young, we were the best from the West. Okay, so the organizers had a huge hotel with a swimming pool and grand grounds, and that's why they were having the party out there. We were to meet our friend from California, Donna, who was staying with relatives in Barataria. So as we drove to the party, we played soca music all the way to get into the mood. And we were sure to get there early so we could park near to the entrance. When we got there, we found out that a friend of a friend of a friend had an extra ticket for us. And as we approached the main entrance, we were greeted by beautiful girls in skimpy shorts and tops, serving samples and all sorts of cocktails. Right this way, please, they said. Or they're trying to drunk us before we even step in the party. We'll get drunk. We were given sun hats made with coconut leaves to shade us from the sun. And as we walked in, we saw many tents with food. I decided I'd pace myself to try as many dishes as possible. There was a wild meat tent, Chinese food, Creole food, Indian food. What more could we eat? We saw bacon chop, seafood, oysters, sauce, grilled meat on skewers, and more. For beer drinkers or cocktail drinkers, the choices were endless. Most expats were in attendance. The New York crew wore linen of many colors, white trousers, light-colored Panama hats, and loud jewelry were synonymous with New Yorkers in their 60s and 70s. Some folks from my parents' era. They had moved to New York in the 1960s and came home dutifully every year to celebrate Carnival. And we would always spot them in a crowd. They wore linen. They come here for Caribana too, you know the New York crew when you see them. At least that's people from that era, linen. So anytime we see them, we say, New York crew. Anyway, and of course there were people from Canada, the London crew, the Canadian crew, and people like me who were living in other countries. At the time I was living in Ireland. Since we were early, there was no standing in line for food or drinks, so I started with some seafood and a little curry. The DJ music pounded from speakers on one side of the grounds. We went to sit down the hill near to the deck around the swimming pool, and a rhythm section entertained with the most infectious dance beats, the scraper, the shack, iron, drums, and scrubbing board and top. These were the percussion instruments that kept a small group chipping around the pool. We sat down to eat and admire the view of the ocean in front of us. With the brilliant sunshine and music in the air, we felt we were truly in paradise. I saw many faces of people I had known from high school. They looked more mature after the passing of decades, but the faces were still recognizable. Then we went in front of the stage, and a singer called Alison Hines from Barbados put some moves on a skinny man. It was fun for us, but even more fun for the non-Trinidadians, because our bottom was big, so the guy was really small. You know, it was quite entertaining, to say the least. Anyway, after that, it was back to the ladies' room to reapply makeup and return with a fresh face to start eating and drinking again. Women checked out the men made moves on the women. It was the ultimate meeting place. The fed was sweet to bad. Unfortunately, like any good daytime party, now this is in the middle of the day, okay? So most of the people who were there were foreign expats, so Trinidadians who lived abroad and came to party day and night and day. That's what we did. Anyway. Like any good daytime party, things started winding down when twilight approached. Some people would never leave until all the music had stopped and they were begged to leave. However, since we had a long distance to drive, we didn't want to get stuck in the dark of night on country roads with no street lights. As we reluctantly dragged ourselves to the exit, we were greeted by more pretty girls serving mini rotis, both chicken and beef. More food again. Oh my God, I shouldn't, I said. But I took 2 of each anyway. We should always have a snack for the road. We limped with tired feet to our car, which was parked nearby. I turned the ignition and got directed out of the spot by security guards who stopped oncoming traffic so we could exit. As we drove through a lonely stretch of Valencia Road, the forest seemed to enclose on us from all sides. Then suddenly, the car engine coughed. It coughed again, and this time the wheels of the car slowed down until we came to a complete stop. We all gasped. I tried turning the key in the ignition, but to no avail. The car just wouldn't start. What were we going to do? We were in the middle of nowhere. That car was supposed to be working. Was the long drive out to Celebria too much for Gloria's little old car? Luckily, we had stopped at the side of the roadway. I snapped open the bonnet and we all came out to investigate. We looked at the engine in the semi-darkness, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. Eventually, a car full of drunken merrymakers passed and tooted their horns. So just imagine everybody was leaving the event, and mostly drunk. And drinking and driving. Nobody takes it too seriously back home. Anyway, so a car full of drunken merrymakers passed and tooted their horn. Ollie, all right? They yelled. Oh yes, no problem, I said, a bit worried about accepting help from strangers. We had heard many nightmarish stories about people being dragged off into the bushes and assaulted. They drove on. However, it became apparent that we didn't know how to fix a car. We thus decided to accept help from any almost sober party people who stopped to help us. Eventually, 2 men passed. They parked in front of us. Are they all right? No, boy. We have no idea what was wrong with the car. Poor Mary, who was visiting from Canada and being lost in the bush on Valencia Road, she was so frightened. It may be the battery. So they tried their jumper cables, nothing happened. They decided to tow us to Valencia, which was the nearest small town. And we agreed. So hooking up belts to the car, we were towed to a sign that said mechanic on Valencia Road, and we thanked the men and they drove away. Finding the mechanic, however, was not as straightforward as we had thought. Even though there was light in the house, he must have wandered off to line with friends. So we stopped in at several neighbors until eventually we found out where he was lining. By that time it was pitch black. He said, just come back in the morning and leave the car with me. Now we were in the east of Trinidad in a very small town and didn't know how to get back to Diamond Vale, Diggermartin by public or private transport. None of us had a Trinidad cell phone that day, and we knew nothing about the taxi routes. We asked a passerby how to get to Port of Spain, because I figured that if we got to Port of Spain in one piece, then we knew how to get home from there. We hailed down a private car, which was acting as a taxi, affectionately called PH, private hire. And I think in Trinidad we had Uber for decades. We knew Uber, just anybody with a car, they'd say, where you going? It's like, come, and bingo, you just pay them something and you get a ride. So we got a PH to take us into Arima. And then from Arima we got a maxi taxi. I don't know who's familiar with maxi taxis, these big taxi vans, right? And they go down the priority bus route, which is a fast route to get to Port of Spain. Now, after listening to loud soca all day, I wish for a little quiet, but that's not possible. Maxi taxis are notorious for providing music for all the passengers, plus everybody within a 100-foot radius. So, you get deaf by the time you drive from Arima to Port of Spain. Beating bass and the strong rhythms deafen us by the time we arrive in Port of Spain.
There are more pans, there are more white people and non-black people playing pan now than there are black people. It's just so, right? I don't know if I'm so happy about the explanation that we're busy inventing. We are busy inventing, no question about that. But I think that maybe it's something, I'm older, so for people of my age, the whole business of Louise Bennett said, the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley, who I don't know how much people know about, but there's a room at Harbourfront named after her, and she's a hugely important cultural figure in Jamaica, right? But she said you have to know where you're coming from before you know where you're going to, right? You don't know where you're coming from, you can't know where you're going to. And I think that that is certainly now for our people as well as for all people. Heritage is an important thing, and it's not just something that you sort of do homage to once a year. It has to do with, I mean, the whole Black History Month thing, for instance, is not satisfactory. Black history and Aboriginal history and Asian history and all the other histories, Middle Eastern history. The Arabs gave us numbers. Why don't we know that? We should know that, right? And so on and so on and so on. Come now, man. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I write a lot in Jamaican language. I don't make any apology for this. It's an amazing language, as far as I'm concerned. I am not into any fight about whether it is a language or it is not a language, because if I talk it in a certain kind of way, there are people who speak English who will not understand what I am saying. So if there is that kind of difference between the two ways of speaking, then it must mean that one is a language and the other one is a language, right? I'm going to read, I have 15 minutes, right? 15? Okay. And I always say that I do what I'm told because I'm an old teacher, so I don't go over time. I'm going to read from my last two books. This one is called, I have to do homage first to Kaya for mounting this, because I think it's important, and I hope it will be better and better as it goes along. I think there are more than 30 exhibitors, which is amazing. A lot of people with books that they have published themselves. I bought one, and I'll tell you about that one. It's a book, the lady's just here, the author. Okay, yes, thank you, my friend. That it's based on, it's a true story. What I found very interesting is the illustrations I think are really nice. And I said to her, who did these? And we are truly in the cyber age. She said, I don't know the person. I said, what? She said, I went online. I found her. She's a Greek woman. I think that's so fabulous, right? Inside the bird, and while me and the child waited, patient inside, just into a week, a nice old man with a glow like a haze round in the face, come and take the baby out my hand, hold him close, raise his voice and praise Jah. Enough respect, El Shaddai. As of now, your servant can go him way in peace. Same just like you did say, for today me put me too high on the saving you set up for every living soul to look on. I'd like to show you to all the Gentile them and to big up your special chosen Israel. This time, Joseph come back with the two burning fine. When the old man don't talk, my husband look on me, and me look on me, back on him. For we two wondering about what the old man have to say.